Welcome to Saturday versus Sunday. I'm Jeff Dover. With me is John Barbin. Let's talk football.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Monday Night Football. I guess that was a game. The refs seem to want to make it all about themselves. I know that there's been multiple. Everyone's talking about this, so we're gonna talk about it too, I guess, and give our take on
record-setting penalties
on how awful that was. It was utter. I'll just jump right in if you don't mind.
Yeah, please. And if you're listening, please hit the subscribe to the channel and like the video. That really helps us out.
Yeah. Well, as long as you like it. All right. So
Even
that
if
was.
You don't, you could like.
Please. That was. I mean, it was essentially an unwatchable game. It's hard to even comment on the players and on what the quality of the play could have been. And this was the big game after the firing of Robert Saleh. So we're okay. Is this? I know it's super short time frame, whatever, 6-7 days, but can that at least give the team a boost? We can't tell. We can't tell for how bad this turned out with the refs.
I had a little bit of a different reaction. I really enjoyed the first half. I thought the first half was really good. Like the Jets were running the ball, like, because that was all season. Everyone was confused on what happened to Bryce Hall, Breece Hall,
yeah.
And because he's good, and the offensive line individually, the players are good, and I don't know why that they weren't being able to run it as better, but they did. I thought Rodgers looked better in the first half. They had 2 receivers with 100 yards, I think. But holy cow, that it slowed to a snail's pace in the second half, and that was horrendous. And you're right, you said it. Like it felt like the refs were making it about themselves.
Well, in no game should you get to the point where you recognize the ref and know his name. That's just not how this is supposed to go. And everyone who watches football knows that you can call a penalty on every single play, every game, at all times. There's holding on every play, or at least an interpretation of holding. There's some amount of pass interference. If you wanted to be super, super strict, everyone's got hands on each other all the time. It's not like Tyreek Hill where he's just running free and no one even can lay a finger on him. Almost every pass play, there's some hand checking. And we all know that some amount of that is just allowed to happen. And when it's really egregious, okay, you call it. And but it's all interpretation. And the offensive line's holding every single play. Like there's just defensive, not only pass interference, but defensive holding or illegal contact downfield is happening on every single play in the history of football. It's never perfectly clean. It's all interpretation. It's kind of like in the NBA. It's technically you're not supposed to be hand checking. They do it all game long, every game. So knowing that when it comes down to interpretation, they just clearly chose to just throw the flag as often as they felt like. It's almost like they had it in for these teams tonight. The one thing that made me think about that was when Kinlaw took an offside, and then he obviously jawed at the ref, and the ref threw a unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. Like that to me was the peak of the refs making it about themselves in that moment. And he almost threw it as like, oh, F you, I'm going to throw this because I'm sure guys mouth off to the ref all the time. And they had every right to today. They just destroyed this game.
Well, and I think, and that's a really good point, because like what you're talking about are penalties that you could call a penalty on every play, but they don't, because they obviously don't want to make it about themselves, or they shouldn't make it about themselves and slow the game down to a glacial pace. So, but I thought another good example of that was the roughing the passer when the guy clearly sacked Rodgers, but then put his body weight on him. It was a form tackle. And even Troy Aikman, who was a former quarterback, was like, yeah, I don't agree with that call. Like, because, and that kept the drive going. That was a critical penalty. So it's one thing when the refs make it about themselves and call a penalty on everything, but it was impacting the game significantly, like extending drives or killing drives, which is not what it's supposed to be like. So then that was ruining it.
And Aikman, I think everyone watching agreed with Aikman's opinion that Epinesa really didn't drive him into the ground. He was being, compared to NFL 20 years ago, that's as gentle of a sack as you can get.
Well, when you come around, like he was literally not blocked and he was running full speed and ran into him, I don't know how else you're supposed to do it, where you knock him over and then you just roll to the side or something. Like it goes against everything that you're taught in terms of tackling, like just getting the head across the bow and putting your shoulders into it. So I don't know how, like, I don't know if there's any other way that he could have come that fast around the corner, hit him, and then, but not tackled him, you know? Like,
I
so,
wonder. I wonder if it's the refs. Okay, so Epinesa had two sacks, and
hmm,
that one he was more hitting Rogers front on. The other
hmm,
one he blasted Rogers from behind on the blind
yeah,
side, and just crushed him into the ground. Didn't hold up or nothing, and
yeah,
that one was fine. This
yeah,
one was more gentle than that one,
yes,
and I actually I'm noticing when a quarterback gets blindsided sacked like that, like, and I mean clean. He had him right through his number on the back. That
hmm,
one never gets called as roughing. It's
no,
almost always when the quarterback's landing on his back.
yeah,
It's almost like the refs have decided that this quarterback landing on his back is somehow worse. But
hmm,
Epinesa crushed him on that other one, and that was a
hmm,
way more aggressive sack, and that didn't get called. So
yeah,
whatever's going on in the ref's head or whatever they've been told, it's just ruining football. I had a take on this last week where I wasn't I was speculating that because defenders aren't sure how to tackle quarterbacks anymore, the mobile quarterbacks are given even more space. It's like
hmm,
defenders don't know what to do as they close in on one of these guys. And I get it, guys like Jackson, it's hard to get your hands on him regardless. And
hmm,
when you get near him, you have to even be thinking, I have to tackle him a very specific way as to not get a penalty. I can
hmm,
see how subconsciously that's always taking like a half step away from the defenders
hmm,
already. It's just, I don't know. It's pretty bad. I mean, and the scoring is down in the NFL. It's bad. So I get that they're trying to promote scoring and trying to promote protecting QBs because they're your thing to watch.
hmm,
But this is, like you said, it just ruins the game when
yeah.
everyone in the country, here we go again, knows that was a normal sack. He really didn't drive him into the ground. And the
Yeah.
very next two plays, the Jets go for a 70-yard run. So it's just,
Well, and the only other thing that bothered me more than the sacks was the pass interference because those were clearly really different between each other. Like one was blatantly pass interference, like not called. One was pretty much just hand checking, but like and was called, or if the ball was catchable or not was another thing that came up a lot. So that's it's yeah, those are and it you know what, it's really hard to ref. I get it. It's really hard to it's happening so fast. They don't see it in the replay before they call it, like they're calling it live. And so that'd be really difficult. But man, was that it made the second half unwatchable. Like it
Mhm.
was so I recorded the game and was skipping through each thing, and all I could think of halfway through the third quarter was like, thank goodness I recorded this because like this would have been just an absolute slog watching it live.
Yeah, I mean, the fans were booing. I think the fans were booing both sides at one
Yeah.
point. Like
Yes.
not just the penalties that went against the
No.
Jets, where a lot of them sucked, but they
Hmm.
just realized this is just terrible. Like what an
Hmm.
awful experience. I don't know how you reprimand the refs or hold them accountable, whatever it is. And it's not like, oh, it was just a chippy game. That's BS. No other game this weekend had this many penalties.
No.
Clearly, these refs had something going on with the way they were calling the game. Whoever, I guess there's one guy in charge of them all. Whatever it was, they were just going to call it really tight, and
Mhm.
every game could have been this ugly if the refs acted like this.
Yeah, no, and it's you know, and I feel for them. Like I don't know where they park when they're at the MetLife or the Jet Stadium, but man, you just as soon as that game was
Be a
over,
couple key jobs out there,
you
yeah.
want to get the heck out of there because you don't want to be walking by the fans at the end of that game about what you know. So they've got a hard job. I'd feel bad for them, but man, it was significantly more penalties, and it made it so much harder to watch.
Yeah. So I mean, I do want the Bills running back looked great.
Yeah,
So
but that was on my list too. What was it?
yeah,
Ray Davis,
Ray
right?
Davis, yeah. So I
His
mean,
rookie out of Kentucky had almost 100 yards rushing. He had over 50 yards receiving too.
mhm.
So that's a great example of a next man up type of situation. You know, like it wasn't expected to have carry the load so much in this game, but he played great, and so
Yep.
that was good for
And
them.
their
And
defense the secondary just keeps just plug and play next man up. That
yeah,
team's depth is pretty impressive because
yes,
they've just lost so many players, and their secondary is making all kinds of big plays all game long. So
yeah.
again,
And Josh Allen too. Josh Allen played
yeah,
really
of
well.
course.
Had over 200 yards passing and two TDs, no interceptions. Like and really ran for a touchdown, but ran for the key first down to ice the game at the end because when you're up 3 points, it doesn't take the other team long to get in the field goal range. So that was a critical get the first down moment, and he
Mhm.
stepped up to it. So good on him
Yeah,
for
and I
playing like
also
that.
thought about between the two quarterbacks. Remember, I asked you which of these two quarterbacks would you bet on for the get right
Mm.
game, and it seemed to have come down to that Josh Allen's just the younger quarterback who has his legs under him, where Rodgers is
Oh
a little
man.
little less mobile. Because that was part of Rodgers' game in his
Yeah.
heyday. He
No,
could
you're
move,
right.
like he could really move, and you could just tell he's not doesn't have that kind of movement. When
No.
he was always good at like doing the phone booth thing and staying
Yes.
in the pocket and finding more and more time. But he used to be able to just take off when needed. He
Mhm.
clearly either can't or doesn't want to.
Mhm.
When it's right there, he could go 5, 6 yards. He's really reluctant to, whereas Allen's like, perfect. I'm just going to
Mhm.
win this game for us. And that to me was, among other things, I get it. They missed 2 field goals and all that. But if you just boil it down to both teams' run games showed up,
Mhm.
both teams' defenses showed up.
Yep.
They almost looked like carbon copies. Both teams were getting screwed by the refs. And in the end,
Yes.
you have one quarterback in his prime who's just way more mobile. And that to me was the slight edge.
Mhm. Yeah, because Rodgers played well. Like
Yeah, he did.
it was the most dynamic offense the Jets have looked all season. So
When you can
but
run, you can do everything.
yeah, it opens everything up. So
Mm.
and I liked how they were getting Brees Hall out to the outside and stuff like that. So it's they had a good game plan. It was really, just a slight edge to Josh Allen, and the refs really ruining any type of momentum or rhythm that they can get into. That's absolutely a thing when you're
Mhm.
starting and stopping so much that it's, you can't get into a good play calling rhythm or as a rhythm as a player. So
Yeah, the most obvious 2 things, the Epineza sack that got called as
oh
a foul, then the big haul run. I'm like, oh wow, the Jets are seizing this opportunity for sure. And another time, actually good for the Bills for coming back from that and coming back from the Hail Mary.
oh my
So I
goodness.
got my last bone to
Yeah.
pick on all of this. I just don't get why coaches think rushing 2 guys and letting a guy just stand there and just to let everyone settle into the end zone.
Yeah.
It I don't really think you're at an advantage. It really is just a 50-50 if you just let everyone pile in the end zone. The refs are
Yeah.
never calling a pass interference down there, which that's all that's going on. Is pass
Yes.
interference on both sides. But I guess since everyone's looking at the ball, they're just never going to call it. Why would you let him? And it's a long throw. That's
Yeah.
not like a 25-yarder. I do not get the assumption that that's the best way to do this when
Mhm.
you could either send 4, even blitz him and make
Mhm.
him throw the ball fast. Like on a blitz,
Mhm.
the way you beat a blitz is you throw it fast. You think he's
Mhm.
going to throw it to the end zone fast? And
Yeah,
then
no, I
just let
can't.
anybody underneath open and then just converge on him. Maybe I don't understand how to run defense, but that is awful when you just let them
Yeah.
stand there and then just go for it.
Yeah, and I think that was, hindsight's always 2020, but they had a guy, they had 2 defenders on either sideline, there to stop the quick, like 10-yard out of bounds, like only take 4 seconds off the clock kind of thing. But that wouldn't have got them in range. So I believe in hindsight, it would have been better to send more people because it's going to be a jump ball anyway. Like it's not like you can send 10 people to the end zone. Like it's still going to be 4 or 6. You know what I mean? So
Even make him
it's
slightly uncomfortable. Even mess up
yeah,
his timing a little bit. Instead, he's just clearly just waiting around till it's time to
yeah,
throw.
yeah. No,
Anyways,
it's crazy how
well,
many he's completed.
yeah.
It's
Well,
the
that's another thing. It's like, oh, the
yeah,
guy who's completed the most of these, yeah, let's just let him try another
yeah,
one. Like what? Anyways, well, I mean, that could have been. It was already a decent game, but it could have been way better.
yeah.
The refs sucked the life out of it. They wrecked the flow. It was just tough to watch. It's disappointing because that should have been a much more enjoyable divisional game.
If it kept going like the first half, it would have been great.
Mm-hmm. Oh well. I don't know. You got anything else? I think
Nope,
that's good
that's
for
it for
Monday
me.
night.
Yep.
Well, good for the Bills. Now they're in front on that division. All right, we'll stick around. We got some more reactions to the weekend.